Welcome to this week's Real Talk with Jill and Tia. We are so happy that you're able to join us.
Yes, hello. Welcome. It is Wednesday. It's
It
Wednesday.
is
Halfway through the
Wednesday.
week.
I know, here we are halfway. And I know somebody already commented on my I vote sticker. Here in the US, it's voting season. And so,
Mm,
one of the things we always talk about when we're on Real Talk and our leadership is like, right, how do we lean into the things where we have control and be the change we want to see? Part of that starts with participating and voting. So I encourage you all to exercise your right to vote.
absolutely. I love it. I love
So
it. And we're excited to be here talking about leadership and food safety culture. And I mean, there's been a lot of headlines over the last few weeks
every
happening
year.
in food. And so I would say food safety culture and how we lead, how we show up, right, is top of mind for people.
It is. And, I think, especially as we think about kind of like we said, where we are today versus where do we want to be?
Yes,
When we talk
yes.
about these headlines, these are not the things highlighting great things happening in food. These
Mm,
are massive recalls that are highlighting, areas that have been overlooked, missed, compromised, like the whole
yeah.
gamut of things. And while we don't know any of the details, like
Mhm,
we understand working in food is an imperfect system, but
yeah.
if our goal is for improvement, then we have to be willing to have meaningful change.
Yeah, meaningful change, sustainable change. And I just came back from Food Safety Consortium, and me and Ben Miller from TAG, we talked about really how to move the dial, your GPS, right, around food safety culture. And one of the things that I talked about on starting that journey and understanding where you are is around your mindset, right, which is really the topic here around like growth mindset. And a lot of times when we look at what organizations are doing, we're going down the same paths, right? We're doing the same things. We have the same tools. We're trying to use, I love it when someone said to us, like, we're using food science for human science, right? For human behaviors. And it's hard for us to get out of that because that's how we're trained. But
Mhm.
it's so important for us to have this open mindset, this growth mindset. And that's really the place to start, because if people aren't willing to move forward, right, it's going to be really hard to get them there.
Ooh, absolutely. And that's why today we are going to talk about the meaningful change because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm one of them. I'll be like, yes, I have growth mindset. Well, we're going to talk about even ways to notice where you don't have growth mindset
Yeah. Challenge
because
yourself, right?
what we think and what we have are often two different things.
Yep.
So, welcome. So, whether you're here live with us today or on replay, just drop us a little note like, where are you joining from? And what is it that you hope to get out of today when we talk about tips to help with growth, right? We want
Mhm.
to do three powerful tips that help with your growth. What brought you here and what do you want to get out of today?
Yes. And
Yeah,
if
that's
this
kind of a mouthful, but like, what are
well,
you hoping to get today?
yes, please add it in the comments, because we can see them. Hopefully with technology we can see them, and engage with you through the comment section.
Yeah.
And if this is your first time here with us, right, I'm Tia, this is Jill, and we're here every Wednesday talking about leadership, food safety culture, how it relates to being in food. And so we here at Catalyst, we really partner with organizations to help them do food safety culture. I mentioned I just had a conversation at Food Safety Consortium, and I talked about the part that people get stuck at is the doing, right?
Mhm.
Like, we might do assessments, we might have a strategy on what we're going to do, but then either what we're doing doesn't work, or we get sidetracked, or different priorities, or and right. But the hard part is the execution, that actually working your plan. And so that's where we help. That's where we help organization, is to work that plan around food safety culture, help equip your leaders with the right skills to be able to influence and drive and motivate and push your culture forward to where you want to be.
Yeah. And to even go a little broader than that, it's not just food safety culture,
Oh no.
right? Like what we talk about here is growth in general. We
Yeah.
just happen to have a passion for working in the food industry because that's where we came from. And we see and know more about it to help
Mhm.
you be the best you can be.
Yeah, because culture is culture,
Mhm.
right? Food safety is just a technical aspect behind it. If you're working on food safety culture, right? But really, culture is people, right?
Yeah.
It's about people. It's about where, from a mindset standpoint, are they, and do they have a growth mindset? Do they have the tools, right? The skills to be able to have a growth mindset and to influence others to move into a growth mindset. So
Yeah.
that's what we do.
It is. And with our coaching background, we are all about you stepping into your power to fuel where you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's what today's show is really about because when we think about where, like we talked about, where we're at and where we want to go, it really takes us to navigate through what is it that we want and to get there.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
it doesn't just happen magically. It's not just I write it on a sheet like this is my, professional development plan for next year. It can be that, but we're going to really, our goal is to challenge you and also to give you some tips on how do you go even further than that to think bigger
Yeah,
and outside the box.
yeah.
Because I'll be the first to admit that when professional development often came up when I was working in industry, most of that was centered around technical aspects of my role.
Right. Mhm,
And of
mhm.
course, hindsight is 2020. I can see that some of the things that I needed were certainly not technical in nature. While that was important, it was these other things. So
Yeah,
that's what
the
we're going to
soft
talk about
skills,
today.
right? The soft skills, the people skills.
It is.
Yes,
And so
I
as we
love
get started,
this.
Judith is out there. Hey, Judith.
Yes, you're looking for inspiration as always. Well, we do hope this conversation inspires, right, people to look at mindset a little bit differently, and like you were saying, Jill, to challenge, yourself on how do you take it farther.
Yeah. And so I think when we think about the first tip, like you've already led into this, Tia, with how do you embrace a growth mindset daily?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, daily, every day, right? This continuous learning that leaders, really should be on the path of. How do you have this mindset where you're actually are not closed, right? You really have this open mindset. You are focused on it daily. It sounds like, ooh, every day, Jill? Every day?
Yeah. Well, and I think this actually more embodies the feeling and the energy around how you think about mindset
Yeah.
because it is daily. When we think about showing up each day, it is something where we make a choice every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's acknowledging my mindset isn't where I want it to be today, but I'm starting here and I'm moving forward.
Yes. Yes.
But I think about, and especially working in food, so often we related growth to fixing problems.
Mm, mhm.
And I really want to distinguish the difference between these two.
Yeah, that's
Because
important.
growth can happen when we learn, through firefighting and for like, gosh, we have to get this done. But that growth is really more out of a necessity versus a curiosity.
Mm,
And because of that, the energy feels different. Our
yes.
brains code it differently. It looks different. So when
Mhm.
we talk about growth mindset, that's over here. That's like fun and energy and excitement and curiosity and
Yes.
exploring. It's not just about solving the problems.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
such.
they are related, but they are different.
Yeah, but I think that's such an important point because I feel like us in food, we almost identify these areas of growth through firefighting, right?
Mhm.
And we say, oh, well, we went through this very difficult project, right? I worked X amount of hours a week, and it's all these things that really are negative, honestly, and they have negative impact our bodies and our minds.
They're failure
But
costs. Let's be
yeah,
real. These are failure costs.
yes, exactly, exactly. And it's like, yes, that is a piece of growth, but that's why I love it when you say even embrace a growth mindset daily, is because there's actually opportunities of fun and excitement and this positive energy that creates this growth within our careers that's actually as impactful as those really challenging times, but you
Yeah.
remember them as something positive. So the sort of neuron connections that's happening in your brain around a positive situation versus a negative situation, that's very different, and that shows very different in your body, right, in your mind, and how you show up even as a leader.
Yeah. And I think the daily part might seem intimidating. Like, gosh, every day I have so much on my plate already. I'm so busy. How would I ever embrace growth mindset every day? Well, all it takes is sometimes an affirmation, like I am going to look for where I can explore today.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be something like you have this huge master big plan. It's just about how do you set the tone for I'm going to be curious and I want to explore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when we set our mindset to be curious and explore, how does that frame the lens that we see things through on that day?
Yes. Yes. I like that, because you never know when this growth opportunity is going to come. That's not survival, right? But the fact that you are being curious, you're able to identify, right, those opportunities. And you actually will be surprised, if you are curious and open, how many of those opportunities for growth exist around you already.
Yeah.
They're already there, and they could be big or small, right? It could be as small as having a conversation with someone, right? And taking that opportunity to have that conversation with someone at that moment, because you identified it as, ooh, this is a great opportunity for me to talk about insert problem or project, or to smooth over some conflict, right? That otherwise maybe you would have let it kind of fester a little bit, because you don't want to have those emotions, but you have that conversation, right? Just opening your mind to those opportunities daily will provide you with those opportunities for growth.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I love about our programs. And yeah, it's kind of a shout out for what we do. But because our model isn't about a one-time learning and then the forgetting curve just kicks in,
Yeah.
ours really asks us to come back each week or at
Yeah.
the time frame that we get together to say, what have we been practicing and noticing and doing so that we are literally making this choice to be in growth mindset?
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up, because we actually asked the people in our program to focus, right? Focus on these things, have this growth mindset, this open mindset throughout the week, and identify opportunities for you to practice. I love it that you brought that up, because that's what we should be doing, right, every day. And sometimes it's a focus, right? We have focused topics, maybe on creating safe spaces, right? What are ways over this next week you could do that? So even so focused like that, you could do for yourself. Or sometimes it's like exactly what you were saying, Jill, where I'm going to be curious today, and I'm going to ask more questions versus answering questions today, and see what I learn, see how I grow.
Yeah, I'm going to embrace kind of this like spontaneous curiosity that comes my way versus being in my rigid schedule of checklisting to get things done.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
that, for me personally, takes intention to get out of that. So even though we have this, we facilitate these growth mindset spaces for everyone, I too need places that help me encourage that. So, right, I follow different people or programs, or I'm reading and following people that really encourage, the space that I want to be in.
Yeah, and because we are busy in food, right? Taking that time early on. I remember even doing this working in the facility. Before I even get there, when I worked in New York City, I took the train, I walked to the facility. So I had that like thinking time almost to kind of get into that mindset of being open, being curious, affirmation statements, right? Even telling yourself that's the state. That's the state you want to be in. I remember even telling myself, like, I know I don't feel the greatest, but when I hit the door to when I get to my office, I'm just going to smile at everyone that I see. And just that action of smiling to everyone, saying hello to everyone. By the time I reach my office, I'm in a much better space, right, to have a growth mindset for the day. So even doing those things get you there. It kind of puts you in this mindset.
Yeah. And I always want to reiterate that growth mindset isn't an all or nothing, everywhere or nowhere.
Right. Yes.
As humans, we are complex beings. So I may be able to easily apply growth mindset in this area of my life, but maybe not so much over here.
Mm-hmm.
Or, maybe I lean into it more in this area and less over here. I want to certainly put that out there, that it's not that, gosh, I'm a growth mindset person and I have to have it everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, maybe. I don't know. We're all different. So finding the spot that helps us be the best version of ourselves,
Yeah.
that's the part. How do we go in and be curious with growth mindset to even
Mm-hmm.
see where those are?
Yeah. And it gets easier over time, right? It's like anything that we practice or when we,
Yes.
flexing a muscle, right? And stretching. It gets easier over time that it becomes a part of you, right? Like this skill becomes a competency for
Yes.
you
It
with
is.
that.
It can be learned. Carol Dweck is the one who termed the growth mindset, and actually kind of wrote the book on it. And she advocates for it is something that you can use your mind muscle on to continually grow.
Yes. Yes.
But
You
she
know,
also outlined some things where people think, oh, I'm so growth mindset. Oh, yeah, I'm totally there. But there are some things that you can watch out for that
mm,
maybe indicate you aren't as far along on the growth mindset path that you hope for.
mm.
So I'm going to read a few of these to see if any of these resonate with people. It can be things like avoiding challenges, like, oh, I see the fire over here, but I'm going to go this way today.
Right.
Taking criticism personally.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm guilty of that. Oh, feeling threatened by others' success, right? Like
Ooh,
if they get promoted or they get that, then maybe I don't get it.
yeah, yeah.
Quitting easily when faced with setbacks. Like, oh gosh, it's
Mm,
too big. I think we see this with food safety culture. Oh my gosh, we'll never get people to change. We can't
right.
have all of that. We couldn't get everybody to possibly go through leadership development. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Or we tried this thing, it didn't work. And so now it's like I'm taking a step back, right?
Yes.
You're kind of avoiding that failure.
Yeah. Growth mindset can also, a indicator that maybe it's not where you think it is believing that talent is solely innate and not developed through effort.
Ooh.
I love that one because we often see people who are like, well, that just comes naturally to them. They're so lucky.
Right. Exactly.
Or like, oh, I could never do that because that's just not my talent. And here, really, we're being challenged to go, it's not about the what we're naturally born with. It is
Right.
about what we're willing to work through.
Yes, yes. And how we're willing to build that muscle, right?
Mhm.
Build
Let's
that
see.
muscle.
Another item that may show that we're not as growth mindset as we think we are is getting defensive when feedback is given.
Ooh.
Gosh,
Yes.
that's a hard one, isn't it?
That's a hard one.
It is
That's a
hard.
hard. Yeah.
Focusing heavily on performance outcomes rather than the learning process. Hello,
Ooh.
KPI driven land we are in.
Yes. Yes. It's the ones, right, where people are trying to reach these KPIs no matter what. No matter who I ram over, no matter if everyone is like literally limping by the end of it. Are
Mhm.
you really just focused on your KPIs or you focus, like you said, on that learning? Or sometimes people talk about it like the how you're doing things. Is that as important or more important than you reaching your KPI
Yeah.
goals?
And what I love is kind of the summary of all of these. They say essentially, you like when you think about growth mindset and signs to watch out for, if you prioritize validating your current abilities, like I need people to tell me my current abilities are really good, over seeking improvement and growth, that might be a sign that we don't have growth as strong as a growth mindset as we may want in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Judith, I put some hard work into shifting from introvert to kind of an extrovert. I love that. Kind of an extrovert. Well, like it's those times, right? On how do I step outside of maybe how I feel like I want to stay in like this box that we put ourselves in.
Mhm.
How do I step outside of that in times that it's needed? Yeah, that's absolutely a growth mindset,
It
right?
is.
Even identifying those opportunities where you might need a shift a little bit.
Mhm. And I think growth mindset, what I love is this probably wisdom that I think Carol Dweck actually had was the power of yet, of
Mm,
using yet. So I'm not as good at this yet.
yeah.
I haven't been able to master this yet.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you're working through, how do you add yet so that it actually sets your mind to know we're moving forward on that. Like we are not going to be limited by my current abilities. I'm thinking forward. I'm thinking
Yeah.
forward to improvement.
Yeah. I saw this fantastic Olympic for the Olympics, a video of a daughter. I'm pretty sure she was a swimmer and she, she did not place. And so she wasn't moving on to the next round. And she was hugging her father. And she kind of made a comment on like she didn't make it. And he said, yet.
Mm,
And she was like, it's just not your time right now. And she was like, I didn't make it. And he was like, yet. So that power of yet, of like, this is not your time today, but your time is coming as long as you keep this growth mindset, right? Like if she stopped swimming today, you're not going to make it, right?
mm-hmm.
You're not going to make it if you stop swimming today. But this powerful of not yet, right? Not yet. You know that it's going to be there in the future, or at least work forward to it in the future till it's no longer something you want to do, right? But keeping that growth mindset is so important. I love the addition of the yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just how that reframe gives us the ability to think bigger.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise,
This
we put ourselves in our own box. But as soon as we say yet, it's almost like it all opens and we have this space to think and dream bigger about what it could be.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Yeah, we definitely challenge you that every time you are faced with it and you're like, no, or this hasn't happened, adding the yet to it.
Yes. Yes. Like really, that is our challenge to you to think about these growth tips for you as you think about where you want to be next year.
Yes.
How do you say yet?
Yes. And this point also reminds me of that book, by Shonda Rhimes, The Year of Yes.
Mm,
And I love that book. It's probably something that I need to reread again. And really, it's about that growth mindset. And someone actually, one of her kids told her that she always says no to things. And so she made a commitment that she would say yes to everything that comes to her for a year. And so I think like that sounds scary, right? You're gonna say yes to
yeah.
everything that comes to you, that you're interested in, right? That fits, those type of things. But stepping outside of like, I'm scared to do this, right? No, I'm gonna push forward and say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And step into that growth mindset and know, right, that you can do these things. And even if you do have setbacks, right? It's not yet, right? But we're moving forward as a yes.
Yeah. And, to think about all the times, working in food, how many times we run into where yet can be applied. Like
Mhm.
we haven't we haven't figured out that kappa yet. We haven't found the root cause yet.
Yeah.
I didn't handle that situation the best yet.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
need to go fix that. Yes. There are so many places that when we allow ourselves to think of yet, that right, we have just more
Mhm.
runway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think those great examples.
Yes. So, another way, if you are thinking about like, how do I fuel my future? And what's another tip to actually get there? How about prioritizing well being as the foundation for your performance?
Yes. Now that's a shift in mindset,
Mhm.
right?
A lot of
That's a
people talk it. We talk the good talk, but do we walk the talk? That I will
shift.
prioritize my well being as a foundation for my performance. Because, of course, if I
Mhm.
can't perform, nobody, like, I can't contribute to my team, I can't contribute to the business.
Exactly, right? You can't pour from an empty cup.
Oh.
right? It's just, if nothing's there, you can't give. And we know as leaders, right, it's a tough job.
Mhm.
And most of our job is giving to others, right? If you're doing leadership right and sustainable leadership, right, like
Mhm.
most of it is giving. So you have to refill your cup. And, data shows that strong leaders prioritize well-being of
Mhm.
self, of emotional well-being, mental health, physical health as well.
Yeah. I think that's the big part when we think about well-being practices, whether it's mindfulness, which I know that seems to be a buzzword and people often think, "Oh, that's just meditation or yoga or something." It's not. There are
Mhm.
different aspects of how that can look for people.
Yeah.
You mentioned physical exercise, the importance of moving our body. Like
Mhm.
our bodies were meant to move. They weren't
Yeah.
meant to sit behind a desk all day or just be like walking on through a plant all day. They are meant to move in ways that honor us.
Yes.
But when I
Yeah.
think about leaders, I think a big one is unplugging from work.
Oh, yes. Say that
And I
again.
know a lot of leaders say, yes, but I have so much happening. And yes, I take time away. But I'm really going to challenge people to think about, do you? Like
Mhm.
when you leave, do you really not check emails?
Right.
Do
Yeah.
you really stop just checking just because you can?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you really focused on refueling yourself so you can show up
Yeah.
as a strong leader the next day or whenever you need to go back in?
Yeah.
Like that's important. I mean, it's so important that it's actually one of the modules we focus on in boot camp. Like we actually
It is.
focus on recharging because it's so important as a leader that you're doing that for yourself as well as for your teams.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
we
we
know it looks different. Every human, it looks different. My well-being looks different than Tia's well-being versus Judith's or anybody else who's on with us.
yes.
But if we don't talk about well-being as leaders, how will the people on our teams or the people around us, how will they value well-being?
Right. Yes.
If we don't talk about, fostering growth mindset and, positive, resilient teams, how will people around us do that?
Yeah.
It starts with us. Leaders are ones we're leading because we're showing a path, not
Yeah.
just because we have a title.
Yeah, and you're telling people, right? Like, I mean, probably one of the most common conversations we have is around checking email after work, right? Or on vacation and you're sending emails. And having that conversation to say, what is that telling your team that they should do when they're on vacation?
Mhm.
How is that really, when we talk about culture, right? How is that setting up? What is that saying about your culture?
Yeah.
When you, as a leader, this is what you're doing during vacation. You're setting almost the precedent, right? The unspoken expectation, which is culture, around what to do when you're out and supposed to be recharging.
Yes. Yes.
That's important.
Yeah. And, really thinking about all because we can doesn't mean we should.
Mhm.
And even as leaders, sometimes we have to really question or, reset our own internal expectations on how that looks because
Mhm.
we are setting the bar for what others do as well.
Now, a lot of people too, Jill, talk about, well, I work in a facility or I support a facility that runs 24/7,
Mhm.
right? And most often they're going, right? And I'm their food safety person, right? I'm their engineer, or I'm their support, right?
Mhm.
Insert their support. So what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to refuel after hours? Like we've all been there, right? Like I've
We
been
have
there where I received a call during sleeping hours for 2 weeks in a row. And I can tell you, I was cranky by the end of those 2 weeks. And something had to change where people will stop calling me at 2 a.m. Right. Like it it's not good for your body. But we've all been there.
yeah.
Our goal is to eliminate those times so we can be better leaders for the
Yeah.
organization.
Right. Because this is about prioritizing our well-being as a
Mm-hmm.
foundation for our performance.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when we think about how we're doing that, not only is it the mental, emotional. One of the things that I loved as we were kind of getting ready for this is they talked about, self-care is a strategic choice. It's not an
Yes.
indulgence. And I think that is also linked to kind of our own self-awareness of like, what
Mhm.
do I need in this moment?
Right.
And we often go back to Tasha Eurich. She is the leading researcher on self-awareness. And her data shows that 95% of people think they are self-aware, but only 10 to 15% are.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about our ability to understand when we need to prioritize our well-being
Yeah.
so that we can perform better, it
Mm-hmm.
really starts with us understanding first, how do we build our own self-awareness? Because
Yeah.
we'll never understand when we need this, when we need to refill our cup, if we can't even understand what our signals are from ourselves.
Right. That is the hard part, right? Many times we get burnt out. We basically push ourselves to the end, get completely burnt out, and then now we're in this firefighting mode, right? Where we just need a solve. But having this self-awareness and being able to make decisions based off of it, self-management, then you're able to notice those things sooner, so you can make different decisions, so you can set different expectations, so you can hire more resources, so you can put things into place, right? Insert what you need to put into place so that you can take a step back and refuel, reset, do whatever it is that you need for self-care.
Yeah. And self-care doesn't just like pop up like, oh, I'm going to go do my self-care right now. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But what we often find is in yoga, there's this term, it's a Sanskrit term, but it essentially translates to say chatter brain. Like our brains are running on autopilot all the time. Even as I'm talking right now, Tia, me, like I have voices in my head still trying to like have dialogue. If you're listening, you're still having some dialogue or something's popping up about, oh gosh, don't forget to do this later. Or, oh gosh, did I do this before I left the house today? When our brains are constantly running.
Yeah.
And so for us to even prioritize well-being, we have to create space for deep thinking. And
Yeah.
if we think about our brain, like our default is that we look for threats. Our brain, our animal brain was designed just for survival and to watch out for things. And as humans today, that could be things like, gosh, what if they don't like me? Or why did they say that? Or I need to watch out for that. Like our
Yeah.
brain's constantly looking for these cues, whether they're real or perceived. And we only have so much energy. And so if we're using that all the time on our chatter brain, like, is that helpful? So you
Yeah.
have to really pause if you want to focus on improving your well-being as the foundation for your performance. You have to really create some space in your brain and in this thinking to know what you actually need.
Yes. That is so important. And there's a lot of data around that, right? To show how that translates to overall well-being for yourself, but even how that translates to having a stronger performance at work, being able to show up, right? Being able to show up and knowing that you have that reset in your mind and that you've actually had time to even just reflect on things that have come to you for this past week, right? Or that day, right? Sometimes we go, and we have not even thought for a minute around like, what went well during this conversation? What did not go well? How am I contributing to this or that, right? How can I make this better as a leader, right? What barriers do I see? We're just go, that we don't even have time to even reflect on, man, how am I even feeling right now?
Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I love about how we start all the events that we do, not here at live, because it's a little bit different format, but when we are doing workshops, webinars, programs, classes, anything, we always start with a clearing.
Yeah.
We do a clearing and we do breath work to ground us and prepare us for our best performance. And I think how powerful that is for the people we work with to carry that forward with them each day.
Yeah, and many people have said that, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's almost like the chatter brain, right? I calm down that chatter brain once I do my clearing, which is really, how do you release the chatter really that's happening in your brain? Writing it down and telling your brain, hey, I'm going to come back to it. We can chat whenever we're done here,
Mhm.
right? And then that breath work to ground us
Yeah.
and to focus us in the present.
Hmm. And so really, when I think about our like how to fuel, right, fuel people for the future on a tip, it's really like, how do you incorporate this clearing for yourself?
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a moment where you pause and just take a few breaths in. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes of something. It can
Right.
be, I do 5 breaths and I
Hmm.
just am going to be here in this moment and focus on, I feel air coming in and out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help us connect to our well being, to help if something's in us to bubble up to go, oh gosh, I didn't know I was feeling this.
Yes, yes. I one thing I love about our leadership programs and doing this ritual before starting, and around the breath work is that we introduce many different techniques. So some, I know of them for myself. Some for me, I'm like, okay, yeah, that doesn't really work for me. But there's so many different techniques
Mhm.
out there. Find the one that works for you, and find the one that works for you in certain situations. Because
Yeah.
some going into a meeting that I know is going to be stressful, and I just need to be more aware of where I am, right? I need to be more focused. That breath work, right? That body movement, even that we talk about, that clearing might be a little different than, okay, I need to disconnect for the week because I'm working on myself, right? And I need to focus on what I have going on outside of work. Even that grounding, right, looks different, and that clearing looks different. And so
Mhm.
we actually introduce many different techniques throughout the program so that you can choose the ones that actually work for you,
Yeah.
that fit for you in your situations. I know I've learned a lot just even through our programs and facilitating our programs over time.
Yeah, that's because we're continually learning because
Mhm.
right, even for us personally, professionally, like our goal is still to continue growing
Yes,
and to be
yes.
better at what we're doing, which is part of why we're here today sharing these 3 tips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also add with like why it's so important to ground yourself, do this clearing, ground yourself. Breath work is amazing for that, right? There's research around that to help you. It also helps you with that self-awareness and even that
Mhm.
self-management on you're not just aware, but what are your actions that are going to follow?
Yeah.
And how do you really go from this time of reaction, I'm reacting to things, to I'm reflecting and then responding appropriately?
Oh,
That's done through that grounding.
yeah. That's so powerful because Tia, I mean, I could think of even moments, you know, while I was working in industry or even outside of industry where I am just so focused on get through the list, get through the list. Sometimes just being able to pause,
Mhm.
take a breath, and then go, okay, where do I need to be right now?
Yes.
Either helps me continue on the path of getting the list done, or it helps me take a moment to go, my actions actually need to be over here. My energy needs to be used here right now.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's even powerful when we think about our growth. Because once again, we get into our default mode of like, oh my gosh, there is more around intentional adulteration, or there's like more about supplier or new traceability requirements and new this that are coming out. Like, oh my gosh, I need to get them all done. True.
Mhm.
When you pause and think about like what's going to bring the most value for
Yeah.
you and your team and the ones that you are influencing, like how does that look?
Yeah.
And it might be still, gosh, I need to go to some new traceability, um, maybe it's
Mhm.
traceability or something else, workshops or training, but what else is maybe needed?
Yeah.
If you're thinking about prioritizing your well-being so that you can improve your performance.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So we challenge you, right? We challenge you to practice breathing exercises, right?
Yeah,
Every day. Try that for a week, right?
try one.
Every day for a week. Maybe before you go into work, after work, right? To kind of separate work from home life. we just challenge you to incorporate that into your day. We'd love to hear about it. Reach out to us and let us know, like, how does it feel, and what do you notice when you're able to actually focus on yourself, and how has that changed the way you show up for others as a leader and within your performance?
Yes. Yeah. So another important aspect to fueling your future is building intentional connections for growth and support.
Yes. So important.
Yeah, because often we think we have to do it alone. Like, I have to find the path alone. I have to do this alone. Like, oh, I can't ask other people to step in and do this or help me with it. But really, one of the ways that we get better is by others around us.
And, I like the way that you talk about it around meaningful and intentional connections, because those are connections that actually help support our growth and move us forward. We make connections every day, right? We could, depending on what environment we're in, but it's those intentional ones, those meaningful relationships and connections that actually cause growth within ourselves. And so that's important as people think about, okay, relationships to build. It's important to think about, what relationships do I need maybe on your path to a growth mindset, right? When you say, okay, I can't do this yet. Well, what meaningful connections do you need to actually push you forward, right? So you can do those things, or you can experience those things around growth, as an example.
Yeah. And, right now, when we think about connections, there's this big push and buzz on mentors. Everybody needs mentors, and mentors upon mentors and mentors, which obviously you can tell I have some perspectives around that. I think mentors are really important. And I think finding those connections is really important. And what I love, the part that I want to share, is that recently in one of these conversations around mentors, somebody came back, someone in our circle, and said, you know how I found my mentor? When I looked at this list of people within my company that are kind of my peers or people I need to connect with, I picked the person that I thought would be the most challenging.
Ooh.
And approached them and said, you know what? I would really love to, have this mentor relationship with you, to learn and grow and just find new perspectives together.
Yes.
The response this person had, like, the person responded to them and was like grateful.
Yes.
But already the story that our connection had in their head about this person has already shifted just by reaching out to say, I thought you would be difficult. And now that I'm kind of bringing you in so I can learn more about you and, keep you closer and understand perspectives, has already started to shift the story about them on how they can help grow programs in food safety.
Yeah, what a great story. Because when we talk about mentors, right? And I mean, I'm right there with you, right? Like, people are searching for something, and many, many times we land on, well, you need a mentor, or find a mentor. It's almost like the default response.
Yeah.
But the example that you gave is an example of someone who is self-aware enough that they know that a mentor is actually what they need, and how they looked for one, versus saying, well, I just need to know someone in the industry, right, that look like me, for instance, that look like me, have in the industry. Well, that might be great, but what do you need from them, right? And in this case, I love this example of, I need someone that's going to challenge me, because they're looking for that growth. And this person in particular fits that challenge for me, right? What I see. And so that person's already open to growth, number one, but they are intentional about the connections that they're making, not just the fact that I want these mentors in industry because I want to enter the industry, or I want to do, but what is it that you actually want to do? And how do you intentionally go after people who you feel like will challenge you to get there? I think that's a fantastic story.
Well, especially if we're thinking about, our goal is to grow, because when we grow, we can help others grow, which means our businesses grow, right? This is all about everybody growing together.
Right.
And if we always pick the safe connection, the safe relationship,
Yes.
Are we growing enough to really help us on that path?
Yeah. It should
Sure.
it should actually feel a little uneasy, when you create this mentor-mentee relationship because, we know growth happens when we're outside of our comfort zone. So it should be a little bit like, oh, this person's going to challenge me or push me in maybe a direction I've been kind of hesitant about.
Mhm.
Maybe that's going to happen. But there's just some unease about it too that should be there. Otherwise, right, if it's like, oh, this is my best friend and she's mentoring me,
Mhm.
depending on the relationship, right, it might not actually be pushing you towards growth because you're not feeling right those things that we talked about earlier, that challenge, right, that almost that need to be like, ooh, I don't know about this, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? I'm going to step into that uncomfortable zone because I want that growth. It should feel like that with not even just a relationship with your mentor, but also a relationship with your coaches and your, other advisors that you might have, even other peer mentors, right? Like you should have those feelings. Otherwise, right, you might only be in a friend environment.
Yes, which right, we have that's a whole other thing that'll be coming. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think when we think about meaningful connections and networking, I think sometimes there's this misconception that networking is kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of a popularity contest. Like, oh,
Right.
I'm connected to all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certainly value if that's your intention, is to be known with a lot of people or have a lot of people in your circle, but also know that it's also can be quality over quantity.
Right.
So
Yeah.
understand, like, what is my objective when I think about like these connections that we're making for growth? Is it my growth is like wanting to be out here in these big spaces and known? That's certainly a very
Mhm.
plausible like goal to have. But if I'm also looking for a different type of growth, then how do I find quality
Yeah.
with specific people that maybe help me get that growth as well?
Yes.
Or that
Yeah.
we can actually offer to others. Because, right, growth and relationships do go both ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yes. I think that that's fantastic. I think a lot of times people too think about like, "Ah, I'm not that great at networking,
Mhm.
right? So I don't want to do it. I don't want to put myself, right? Really not a growth mindset, all the things you talked about, right? That you might not be on the path of growth mindset. But doing this is actually a skill. And it's one, you said it earlier that it's not this innate thing. Obviously some people are better at it than others if with no skill development, but it's still a skill that can be gained and nurtured just like any other skill. And it's funny because I recently connected with a colleague and she is extremely skilled with connecting with others, extremely skilled at it. And she has helped me throughout my career around it. But with recent job changes and COVID and some other challenges, so what COVID was in, 2020, we're coming up on almost, 5 years of just movement that she has been having. And she recently had told me that, she's struggling with making connections because she just hasn't been in that environment for so long. So even someone that I would almost consider it to be something that's innate, right? Something that
Mhm.
that she's great at. Even to be like, wow, I haven't been in this environment in a few years. Like I feel a little off with connecting to people. That's because it's a skill and we have
Yeah.
to flex it, work it, work that muscle. Otherwise, right? Like it dies down, even if it is something that you think that you're super great at. If you're not using it, right, just like any other muscle, then it gets difficult to jump back in. So if you're in this moment that you need to build relationships and build meaningful connections, whether it's from a mentor mentee standpoint or at your job, right, to be able to influence and get work done, you have to practice and work that muscle and build that muscle and keep building that muscle.
Yes. And we were fortunate enough to recently lead a workshop on meaningful connections.
Mm-hmm.
And even as we did that, I thought about my own personal plan for creating meaningful connections. and how powerful, even though like we talk about this all the time, like it still takes intention to actually plan this out.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things that we talk about can be helpful as well. Because once again, creating space, like we talk about it right now, and you're thinking about like, what could my connections be? But until you put pen to paper or
Yeah.
actually write down, here's what I intend to do and a plan around it, sometimes it just kind of falls off the radar.
Mhm.
And so, Tia, I'm always like throwing things at us kind of in the middle of things, but I'm like, that might be a really fun workshop to
Yeah.
offer to our audience to say, hey, come on over. And as you think about getting ready for 2025 or, whatever's coming ahead, like,
Yeah.
let's think about this meaningful connections and putting this plan together, and we'll help you walk through what that looks like.
Yeah, it's something that has come up in many conversations. The workshop that we did, but then even randomly, right, with people talking around, how do I build these meaningful connections and the importance of building meaningful connections. So we challenge you, right? Like, join us. We're going to release more information about it, but join us in our upcoming workshop around meaningful connections so that you can actually put pen to paper, right? And start building that plan around, right? Who do you need to connect with and why, right? How is that helping you with your growth?
Absolutely. Yes. All right. So today, as we have talked about, and we've gone through a few things, right? But our whole goal is like, how do you accelerate your growth? And what are some tips around it? So first, we talked about embracing a growth mindset every day. We talked about how do you prioritize your well-being as the foundation for your performance. And then lastly, how do you build intentional connections for growth and support? These are three, I think, fantastic foundational pieces of how do you think about really fueling your future.
Yeah, and take one of our challenges, right? Or all three of them, or insert your own challenge based on what you need, and challenge yourself over this next week, before we connect again. Challenge yourself and to push yourself towards growth.
Yep. And you know what? Even better yet, we're going to challenge you to come into our community.
Yes.
And share the challenge that you're taking.
Yes. Yes. Get insights, get feedback, or just communicate with others, right? Because people are listening, right? And want to grow and want ideas around it. Community is a great way to share those.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as we think about even wrapping up this year, we have had people reach out and say, it's the end of 2024. We have dollars that we need to use that are in our development budget. What do you guys have?
Yes.
We are so glad you asked, because what we do is different, and what we do is only in food. So we have walked the walk, we have talked the talk, we have been here. And what we love is when people are serious about it. And the best way to do that is we have all of our programs opening in Q1 of 2025, and you can use those dollars today to secure your spot in those seats.
Yes.
To start the year off right.
Yes. Start your journey right. For 2025. I can't even believe we're talking about 2025 already, but we are almost here. We've asked the question multiple times over this last, few weeks of what is the cost of you being in the exact same spot next year? If we got to the end of 2025 and we're starting to talk about 2026 and you have not moved at all, what does that cost you yourself? What does it cost your organization, the performance, your team, right? What is that cost of it? So we want to help you along the way. And like Jill said, our programs are opening Q1. So we are starting the year making some movements.
Yes, we are. So there's some programs are open on our website. Some email us. We have waiting lists in the background that we are opening. So hello@Food Safety Catalyst, and we will get you hooked up.
Yes, we will.
To fuel your future.
Yes, yes. And until then, we will be back. You will see us next week. And we hope that you have a great rest of your week and that you practice these challenges. We want to hear about them. So reach out to us and let us know. Add in community. We want to hear about it.
Yes. Until next time, make it a great week, and we'll see you then.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.